Welcome to Dad's Guide to the Galaxy, where fatherhood meets knowledge, exploring the universe one video at a time. I'm your host, Jason, and today we're going to be discussing, I think, a question that everyone has on their mind, and that is, what do I need to do to get started to share myself, my presence, my knowledge, my experiences with everyone on YouTube or the world? All right, so first things first, what do we need to do in order to get started? What do we need to do to put our information out on the internet? And what tools and hardware are we looking at? Well, personally, here at Dad's Guide to the Galaxy, we like to keep things as cost efficient as possible, especially on the side for fatherhood, because everything costs money, and who isn't a little opposed to free 99. So first things first, one of the software applications I think that are probably the best application you can have in your arsenal is the OBS Studio. Now, with OBS Studio, there's a couple of things to remember. One, it's completely free. Two, it's always being updated by the community and those that use it because it is open source. But three, when I say free, I mean it's absolutely free. It allows you a simple view at a software application, so it's easy to navigate for those who aren't even tech savvy. Now, why is that important? Well, let's say, for example, you hear the word Adobe and everybody is familiar with Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Premiere or After Effects. Those tend to take a little bit more to navigate through. But the problem is this, like, how do you navigate something if you're not tech savvy? How do you navigate through an application if you don't really know where to go? And a lot of these applications tend to overcomplicate things, just like with certain technicians. So OBS Studio is one of those where once we walk through it, it's fairly easy. It can be reset to default. So if you ever think you messed something up, all you have to do is reset it all and you're good to go and set your settings back up again. Really fantastic tool. I tend to use it for a lot of my videos when I'm recording on the computer or with a webcam. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to show you OBS. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump over to my main view here, and I'm going to move this out of the way. So this is what OBS looks like, but the first thing that we want to do is we want to actually get access and download OBS. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bring over a new tab window here, and what you're going to do is you're going to type in OBS Studio. Now, when you do, the very first link that you get here is for obsproject.com. You click on OBS Studio for this link, and you're going to get a window that looks similar to this. Now, within this window, you want to identify the operating system that your computer uses. Most people have Windows or Apple. Very few have Linux, but if you do have Linux, you will know, so you know which one to select. I actually have Windows. I've already installed it, so we're not going to go through that process, but what you do is you click on this, it'll download it, you click on the little tab at the bottom, and it will run the exe file and walk you through a few prompts to install the setup. Once you do, you are going to see a launch window similar to this one here. The only difference between yours and mine is mine actually has some items in the scene selection as well as the source selection. Now, once you get this screen, it's pretty straightforward. You have a top menu bar. You have a couple of little view sets down here. The first thing we want to do is we want to set up OBS so that way you are able to use it in the intention that you want to use it. Now, here's the great thing. Like I said, if you change your mind and you decide to do something else later, you can always go back in and make that change. But if you go up here at the top, you're going to go to Tools, and you're going to go to Auto Configuration Wizard. You're going to see this beautiful little pop-up here where you are going to select one of three options. The first option is optimized for streaming. Recording is secondary. Now, let's say, for example, you want to record your video gameplay, or let's say you want to stream to YouTube or Facebook Live, or maybe you have an OnlyFans and you want to stream to that. You're going to go in here, click on this option, and when you do hit Next, it's going to ask you for your base resolution, frames per second. Now, your base resolution, I tend to like to keep mine at the 1920 by 1080. It's just kind of a standard size for most views. Frames per second depends on your camera. Now, the equipment that you have is extremely important because the higher the quality webcam video, the higher the quality the webcam video will be. And in most cases, 30 frames per second is standard, but many of the newer cameras that are tad bit higher, usually around the $120 to $200 range, will also allow you to do 60 frames per second. Now, with 60 frames per second, it does give the video a more efficient flow, so it doesn't seem choppy at times. Like, for example, if I wave my hand across my face, you're going to see where it's kind of jumpy. On 60 frames per second, you're going to see a fluid motion all the way across, so keep that in mind. Personally, I use the 922 webcam from Logitech. It's a really great camera. It gives you some options for both, but standard video I do is about 30 frames per second. So with that, you're going to go ahead and select. I keep mine at either 60 or 30, but prefer 60 when possible. That way it just knows when to switch it. You can actually place it directly on any of the below. So when you hit next, for streaming, you will need to know the streaming service you're using. So for example, if you're a gamer, you want to do a Twitch, you can. There are a lot of options. So when you click more, it goes through a massive list. So keep that in mind. Vimeo for business, whatever it may be. If you want to do TeamSpeak, you can also do that. There's a lot on here. So you need to know your server, you need to know your stream key, you'll put those in, hit the next button, it'll walk you through the process. In this instance, we're going to be doing recordings because I like to record, edit, and then adjust the videos if I need to. And this one, we're not really going to do too much adjusting because it's pretty straightforward, but we're going to select that option. You would hit next. You get the same two options that you did the first time, but when you hit next here, it's basically just going to allow you to apply the settings. You do have one last option, which is I will be using a virtual camera. This is if you were doing TeamSpeak, anything that you have normally for work environment. So your video settings are pretty much straightforward. You would apply there. Being that I've already got this set up, we're not going to apply anything, but normally you would do optimize for recording. I will not be streaming. Again, let's say you change that and you want to change your mind, and let's say you want to do streaming. All you have to do is go back up into Tools, Auto Configuration again, and go through the menu settings, and it'll let you prompt it for that. Now, you notice the screen up here is black. Obviously, like I said, I'm using another window to record in OBS. You can have multiple windows open, but one of them will only be functionable. So certain things within this display will not work, but I'm going to show you how to set up your scenes as well as some of your devices or sources. So first things first, what are your scenes? Your scenes are just like in a movie where you essentially have to think, what do you want the audience to see? Do you want them to see you? Do you want them to see your screen, your desktop? Do you want them to see a specific window? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to come down here to this plus button, and when you click plus, you're going to give it a name. So in this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do testing. We're going to go ahead and name that. And as you can see in the sources, all the sources that I had listed here disappear. Now, the sources are going to be what your inputs are. So for example, if you're just using the 922 Logitech camera or whatever camera you have, you would go in here and you would hit plus, and you would find which option best suits you. Now, the ones that you're going to tend to use more often, you're going to actually select either an audio option input for capture. You're going to either select the browser option if you're showing people how to browse the internet and search for things. You're going to use display capture if you want to show them what's on your screen. Game capture if you're playing a video game online. For example, let's say you're streaming something but you want to record just the screen yourself for recording, you would use that. You can do image capturing. You can actually do window capturing. So for this example, let's say we're going to do display capture. So we're going to name this display capture 2. And now you can see it's capturing my display. So we're going to go ahead and bring this information up here for display capture. Capture method is automatic. You can change that to whatever you would like. You can also change this to your Windows build for 1030 and up. I do automatic, that way it selects what is on my screen. Display itself is, like I said, you want to keep it at 1920. Primary monitor is the one to my right. I'm actually using two. I can change this over to my secondary display, which is where I do most of my recording. When you do that, though, if you notice, because I have my OBS window on the screen, you see what looks like the movie Inception, a screen within a screen within a screen, and an infinite view all the way off in the far distance here. That's normal. But once you hit OK and you start doing your recordings, it'll show what your view is. And usually you'll magnify the main option, and that's what you see. This is only your view. Now, I always select Capture Cursor, so this box is always checked because I want to see where my cursor is at while I'm doing this, and I want my audience to see that. So, for example, you could hit OK here. Now, with this display capture set up, let's say, for example, you're doing a video and you want to show your face from your webcam. So now you're displaying your desktop. We're going to go ahead and hit plus again, and we're going to go ahead and capture another source. Now, normally I would pose this question out to the group, which device do you think you would select? In many cases, people would, have their inputs or options. But we're going to go ahead and figure out, which one we want. Oh, give me one sec here. So we want our video capture device here. And we're going to just name this 922, right? So 922, that's our camera. As you can see, mine's the C922X Pro. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. Normally, if you want to keep your settings, you can use the defaults once you've created them. But if you don't, then you can create as many new ones as you like. Now, right now, you're not going to see anything because I am using it to record myself. So instead of the webcam, what we're going to do is we're going to do integrated webcam. And this is the camera that is on my laptop. So currently, you can deactivate, you can activate it, you can configure your video. When you click on that, you'll see a little window that looks like this. If you don't know what these settings are, don't mess with them. But you can go in there and fine-tune a little bit of the details and what your video looks like. Default resolution, you can put, I keep it at default itself. The resolution for your screen will change if it allows you. Because I'm using my laptop camera, you can't see it. Now, if I change this over to the 922 Pro, you can, it's because I'm actually in the settings recording a video currently. So resolution, you want to edit what you can. Let me see if I can do resolution here on this one. Actually, let me bring this one over here. So this is the one I'm currently recording off of. As you can see, my video camera right here. But I'm going to go into my details for my 922 Pro. As you can see, resolution would be what you would change on this view. Again, keeping it at the 1920 by 1080. And then the highest frame per second is what I select. You don't want to match output. And essentially, you only select 30 or 60 when you're recording in 30 or 60. As you can see, mine's recording in 30. So I just leave it as the highest. Video format is something you want to actually select right away. With the video format, you're going to select the MPEG format. And the reason why you're doing that is when you do your recordings, you don't want to have to go back in and convert them if it can be avoided. So color, range, buffering, you can keep all those pretty standard. Capture audio only. And then I actually have a different microphone, as you can see here. I've got one of the Yeti Blues. It's not one of the best microphones on the market, but it serves its purpose for close usage. As an audio device, I can go down here and you can select the different audio devices. So you can use the audio from your streaming camera, excuse me, the integrated camera for trusty Starbucks, the integrated camera for your laptop, the Yeti microphone that I'm using. So in my case, I'm using Yeti microphone. I'll select that, hit OK. And now I have my video here as I'm recording my background, recording this. So if you wanted to, you could also go in and, for example, I have a separate audio channel that I've created for my Blue mic. So you would click down here and you would do your audio input capture, and you can record your audio that way. When I go into the details for my Blue mic, it's pretty straightforward. What's your device? Once you select it, you can use device timestamps, but I only recommend doing that if you want to take your video into an application that will allow you to edit it and use the timestamps. For example, if you were using Premiere or After Effects, then you could do that. But otherwise, you don't really need to. So we're going to go ahead and OK or cancel in my case, since I already have it set up. And then, again, a lot of the other options are just simply going in here and making your recordings for, let's say you want to do a window capture. We're going to do test video for this, and here it'll ask you what window you want to record. So for example, if you do happen to have a game open, it'll actually tell you right here, and so you can select that, and when you do, it will put your window here, just like it is for this one, because it's seeing just the window itself. So now I can move it and show you just this window. I can enlarge it to the entire screen so you can see the details and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and cancel out of that. If you wanted to do game capture, as you can see, I already have one here. You would just hit the plus sign and then select game. Actually, I can show you plus sign and game capture here. It's the same thing. You'll get this window, and then again, the same thing, capture full screen application. If you have a game open, it'll recognize just the game. And so, for example, I don't happen to have one open right now, but if I was going to play Minecraft with my kids, you could select that, and that'll help you. So go ahead and cancel out of that. Now, in the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see where you have some controls. It's pretty straightforward. You have your scene transitions, which we're going to get to in a minute, and then you have your audio mixer in the middle. Your audio mixer basically provides you information on your devices. As you can see, my camera is showing here, and it's showing red for recording. My microphone is showing red for recording, but I am not utilizing the audio for my camera, nor am I using the Yeti microphone for the camera, because I'm actually using the Yeti microphone to collect the device information. So I have that one going. As I scroll down the devices here, for desktop audio, I have the playback, I have my headphones set up. So if I decided to plug them in to hear myself better for editing purposes later, I could. My laptop cam is configured, and then my mic audio for my laptop is showing, but I have that muted. The more audio devices you have open and recording, the more possibility of echoing you'll have in your audio. So let's say you want to record a video, or you want to start streaming, or even starting the virtual camera, which is, again, the TeamSpeak, Office Meets, things like that. You would select the option you have. Currently, I'm recording a video with OBS, so I have the recording function set up here. But in order to do your recording, let's say you are recording your video, and when you're done, you want to figure out where your video went. By default, it is going to go here in your C folder, and then in your users folder, and then videos, or a shortcut here would be videos on this location. Now I've changed mine to an external hard drive, so that way everything records. And in order to do that, you can actually go in and change it through your settings menu. So if you click on settings, and it may not do it here, there it goes. And you go down to, I believe it is video or advanced, one of those. Let me see here. Video stream. Oh, nope, sorry, output. If you go into your output, you can select your recording path. So browse to the location where you want to save your video. This is really important if you happen to have two hard drives. In many cases, you may have an older computer that has a smaller main hard drive and then a secondary hard drive for storage. Select your option here, change it by default to that internal secondary storage. If you have a hard drive that's connected constantly to your computer, then you can connect it to that external storage source. And you can generate name without spaces or with. Now, normally I'm going to select without, but for this instance, I have it set to keep the spaces in there. It just depends on what you want your video files to look like. I've also changed mine here so that they're MP4. Let me see if I can go into the other OBS window, and I will show you what I'm talking about with the settings. So if I go here, and it may not allow me because of multiple sessions. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it's going to let me change it. So for example, by default, the video is in a MKV file. So you're going to want to change this to MP4. And the reason why you want to change this to MP4 is MP4 is a universal video format. Most applications that work with video will take it. It's also playable in many of the playback softwares that are out there, whether free or paid. So really great to know that. You also want to make sure that you're selecting for audio recordings either the MP4 format or the MOV format. You can change MP4 in some converters later to an MP3 format, and that can be uploaded as an audio file directly anywhere, depending on whether or not it'll take MP3, but most software applications will. So something to keep in mind. Again, everything else below that you really don't want to mess with too much. You may have decoders and buffers and everything based on your video and audio cards if you have a desktop. And if you have a higher video card or audio card intakes or input source, then you can mess with these. But if you're a beginner and you've just purchased one from Costco or somewhere online, let's say you went to Newegg or whatever it may be, the sources they're really, you don't want to mess with the options too much. Keep it basic until you can figure it out. The more you mess with it, then the better you'll get. And so in this case, we would hit OK. I'm not going to because, again, I'm recording a video and I don't want to mess with the settings that I have. Your transitions are what you have in between different scene cuts. So for example, if I'm in this scene now, and then let's say I want to change my scene to scene 2, see how it swipes to the left here? So your main screen changes. You can have it to where it fades. So now it'll fade in and out to each option. Or you can go in there and change it to something else. So you can always add a new one and then adjust accordingly. There are some additional add-ons that you can put into OBS. I tend to stay away from those just because it makes it crash. And so I don't want to mess up any of the software, any of the free elements that I have right now. I can always do fades and transitions in Premiere or Adobe After Effects if I need to, if I want to go that route. So first you want to get familiar with this one. And then, of course, every time you're done, if it's recording, you would hit stop recording. It'll save your video, and you're good to go. Again, if you mess up, and let's say you make a mistake, you can go ahead and remove all of your displays. So in this case, for the test scene, we can select the ones we want, and we can just hit remove. It says, are you sure? We'll hit yes. And if we want to remove the display capture, we can remove this and hit yes. And then it puts it back to generic. And if we want to remove this test scene altogether, we can also do that. So there isn't anything that's permanent. If you remove it, you can always re-add it, and it is very, very painless to do so. So keep that in mind. Now, of course, with OBS, I'm going to go ahead and change my view back over here to my camera. Something to keep in mind, there are a lot of other options and features for changing how your view is set up, changing how your boxes are displayed, adding borders around your boxes and your cameras, but those are a little bit more complex. So, those are videos for another time. This is really great software, really great formatting for free. Give it a shot, give it a try, see if it helps you start your journey. And again, don't be afraid to express yourself and say what you need to say. Don't be afraid to play with something. Don't be afraid to explore. Don't be afraid to try what these settings are. There's nothing you can do in OBS that you can't turn back to default. And the great thing about that is, as you are starting to learn how to use the tool, you'll become better at it. But you can't do that without exploration. So, don't be afraid to be fearless. And remember, fellow dads, the pursuit of knowledge never ends. Stay curious, stay involved, and keep reaching for the stars.